Welcome back to Uprising. I'm Sonali Kohatkar. The White House unveiled a major plan last Thursday entitled America's College Promise, which, if passed, would allow millions of college students around the country to have access to free or nearly free higher education at community colleges. President Obama said, "What I'd like to do is to see the first 2 years of community college free for everybody who's willing to work for it." Students would have to show that they're committed to getting their degrees and maintain an at least 2.5 grade point average. The federal government, together with states, would provide 75% of all the funding, with states being required to step in for the rest. It remains to be seen if Congress would approve such a program. Student movements around the world have agitated for free education, from Quebec to Mexico to the UK. Many see the right to education as a path toward empowerment and political liberation. In the U.S., education has historically been seen as a path toward individual economic liberation, but with the higher costs of higher education, this is increasingly rare. But what about seeing the classroom itself as a space for political debate and dialogue? Classrooms are often the spaces most conducive to raising the hard questions of how societies should live, and yet there's always been pressure to depoliticize them. My guest is Paula Mcavoy, philosopher of education and an associate program officer at the Spencer Foundation, and she's the co-author with Diana E. Hess of the book The Political Classroom, Evidence and Ethics in Democratic Education. Welcome to the show, Paula.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get into the details of your book, how important is this effort by the White House to have free or nearly free community college education?
Well, I was very excited to hear that, and I think it's really important. Community colleges are great institutions. When I was a high school teacher, I actually taught on a community college campus for 10 years for a high school program, and I think they are really important for young people and adults who need a place to go to get a high quality education at an affordable rate.
And it's amazing, of course, just looking at how our school system has developed. We technically have a public education for kids that's free K through 12, but then all of a sudden when it comes to higher education, we really don't have much of access to free education. Even our state schools that are supposed to ostensibly be free at the higher level, these days are more and more expensive. And I'm wondering if that sort of naturally limits the kind of political space a classroom can be if the costs then leave out lower income Americans.
Well, I think this is a great point. So in the book that we wrote, we're looking at high school classrooms. But one thing that we found is that if one of the aims of the classroom is to prepare young people to live well within a democracy, it's really important that the classroom then reflect the diversity of views within that democracy. So if you are having a classroom in which sort of upper class young people who are all, of the same socioeconomic class, perhaps the same race and ethnicity, having them discuss an issue of, for example, in Ferguson, of whether or not police should be have video cameras with them at all times, that's going to be a very different conversation than if there are actually students of color in that classroom, or if there are people from lower income demographics. So it's really important to try to capture that diversity. And the more that college becomes inaccessible for people who are not quite wealthy, then the universities are having really sort of the conversation in the college classroom becomes really skewed.